Hi everybody, David here from VIA Render. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. In this video, I want to take a look at something that I think is both really cool and more importantly is also free. And that is the browser-based image editor called Photop. We're going to see if you can use Photop to do a whole suite of post-production on your raw renders, and then we'll briefly talk about whether Photop can actually replace Photoshop or your default image editor when it comes to professional work. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, everybody, so here we are. We've gone ahead and just opened up Photop in a browser. Now I'm using the most up-to-date version of Chrome, and I've had pretty good success with that. I can't say that other browsers like Edge or whatever, you'll have the similar results. So for this, we're just going to go off the basis that you're using Chrome. And here you can see this is the Photop sort of default state. You'll notice that there are some ads on the side. You can actually get rid of those if you go ahead and purchase access to Photop. And you can see if we go to account over here on the top left, you can use the free for basically nothing, which is really incredible. You can also go ahead and pay for the premium. And you can see if we go premium, there's actually different like tiers that you can go for. You could get this for your whole team, or if you want to just be a single person, for 30 days for $10 ad-free, it's really quite good. I think the best deal with Adobe's Photoshop and Lightroom combination is still about $20 a month. And for a lot of people doing sort of post-production in images, particularly just still images, $20 a month kind of adds up quite a lot. So in terms of cost effectiveness, you can still just use Photop for free, or if you want to support them, go ahead and just, pay for the $10 a month. Okay, so what we're going to do is, you can see here, we've got access to new project, open from computer, or a PSD template, so a Photoshop file. You can also have access to storage over here on the left, Google Drive, OneDrive, and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and just open a raw render from D5, and we're going to go ahead and just open that. So I'm just going to go open from computer, I'm going to go desktop, and I'm going to go ahead and just open this image here. Now, I have found Photop to be pretty responsive, but I may just turn off the webcam recording just to ensure that you viewers have a pretty smooth transition. All right, let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. All right, everybody. Those of you who've been following the channel, and if you haven't, thank you so much. We'll recognize this from a short video that we did on mirrors, where we looked at how to set up mirrors in D5. Now, I went ahead and just rendered out the actual sort of final render of this scene, and you can see it right there in front of you. And we're going to do our post-production on this without any Photoshop. I did resize it just a little bit instead of my usual like either 4K or 6K or 8K. This is just a 3K PSD. Yeah, it's just a 3K image. So it should be just, and I did that just to make Photop a little bit more responsive while I record. I personally had no problems loading up a 4K image and making adjustments to it. So just be mindful of that. Okay, the interface should be super familiar to anyone who's used Photoshop. And you can see we've got our toolbar on the left. We've got options for editing our images, our adjustments, and layer work, and even a selection option. What you have in front of you is basically a pseudo Photoshop, except in your browser. And I know Photop is not new at this point, but it's still really impressive to my mind. We also have on the right a layers panel, a layers panel, and then access to the channels and the paths as well, if you're using the pen tool. And you can also see we've got little options here for thumbnail size, and I'm going to go ahead and just increase that. You can see you can go ahead and just adjust these. Now, my personal preference is to just keep increasing this thumbnail size here. That's just because that's kind of how I learned it in Photoshop. So that's just what we're going to do. And okay, if we take a look here, you can see this looks like a very standard D5 render. We've got some kind of reflections going on, and we've got our mirrors going on. Let's see what we can do with this image. And let's see, can we actually take it a step further without even touching Photoshop? All right, let's get started. All right, everyone. The first thing I'm going to do is to effectively recreate my post-production Photoshop workflow. I'm going to right-click on the background here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the layer. That should be fine. And then I'm going to go up to Filter. And what I'm going to do is we're going to try and just see, can we do a quick levels adjustment first? So let's actually go ahead and just hover over the adjustments. And you can see, I'm going to click on the levels here. And similar to what we kind of do with Photoshop, we try and basically hit the auto button and really let the program figure out the lights and the darks. And I think if we go ahead and just click reset there, I think the auto here looks pretty good. Now, we should point out, I don't have an AO layer and I don't have a specular or reflection layer out from D5. It's just what you see is what you get. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's right click and go ahead and merge that down. I'm going to right click and duplicate one more time. All right. And now what we're going to do is, now that we've sort of reset the image to its basics, we're going to go ahead and work through our different filters and see what we can do. So the first adjustment that I'm going to do after our levels adjustment is we're going to go up to Filter. And you can see here we've got Camera Raw. Now this is you can see on the right, a very pared down version of Camera Raw. It is still really cool that you get it. It's just that the options are somewhat limited. I'm going to take the temperature a little bit to just kind of take this to the right, just kind of add a little bit more warmth to the image, and you can see that reflected in the histogram. The exposure and contrast, I think, are actually pretty good. I am going to take the vibrance up, and I'm going to drop the saturation down just a little bit, kind of making the colors more vibrant, more like kind of increasing those, but also taking away some of the saturation to make it look a little bit more realistic. And I think that looks okay. Let's go ahead and click OK on that. And again, we're applying this to this layer 1 copy. So I'm going to go ahead and just double click on that and just call it BKG, background new. So this is our new default layer, and we can forget about the other ones. All right, I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate this one more time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Image, and we're going to go Adjustments. And you can see we've got options for brightness, contrast, levels, curves, and exposure. Now the exposure is already good. Levels we already did. Brightness and contrast we left alone. I'm going to grab the curve slider here. And let's just see what we can kind of do just by tweaking this ever so slightly. I'm going to try and just adjust the midtones maybe a little bit more. And this is definitely kind of one of those things that, you just kind of move things around, see what sticks. It's nice to know that we even have this. I'm just going to take down these ever so slightly. You can see I'm going for areas of kind of a little bit brighter over here. And the shadowed areas, I do want them to be kind of darker. So we're going for an area, visual appeal, going from light to dark. And I think that looks pretty good right there. All right, let's go ahead and click OK on that. Not too bad. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the hue and saturation. So again, let's go Image, and let's go Adjustments, and let's go Hue and Saturation. Okay, so you can see here now we've got the master options, but I'm going to go ahead and grab the green sliders. Okay, so I'm going to be affecting everything kind of on the green spectrum, and I think the hue is fine. I like these green plants. Let's just start tweaking the saturation a little bit. Let's make them a little bit more vivid. And let's see if we can make them a little bit more interesting. I'm going to crank these to the right, I think. Just brighten things up. There we go. And the hue I'm pretty okay with. I don't really see much need to change those. For the most part, they are kind of nice where they were. All right, let's go ahead and click OK on that. All right, if we toggle this, we should start now seeing a difference between the original and our adjusted one, original and adjusted. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and right click and merge that down. There we go. So I'm committing all of these changes. Now, bearing in mind, we do still have the ability to step back. We can effectively undo this, but it is really nice to see it as well. Okay, That looks pretty good. Let's go back to image and let's go adjustments. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see what else we can do in terms of adjusting this. Let's grab our color balance. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run the midtones here. Let's take up the red just a little bit. You can see it gives it kind of an autumnal feel now. And if I take away the yellow to blue, you can kind of see if I crank this to the left, the image becomes more yellow. If I crank it to the right, it becomes more blue, and you can kind of get a nice blend in between. You can also do the same for the midtones here, taking things either slightly more red or just taking them slightly more green. I'm going to leave this at the default, so I'm going to go ahead and just put this one back. Let me put this back. There we go. And I like the red, and I'm going to add a little dash more yellow. On some of the highlights, let me see, can we go ahead and just add a little bit more yellow? I just want to see, can we kind of change things a little bit? Yeah. All right, I think that's looking pretty nice. Let's go ahead and click OK on that. And again, just go ahead and compare the original to the slightly modified. Now, a lot of these modifications have come in pretty strong. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate. This was layer 1. This was the one we did the levels to. And I'm actually going to drop the opacity of the layer that we've been making adjustments to. In other words, this will allow you to kind of fine-tune the effects that you've already done. So I can toggle this on and off, and I think that's good. Let's go ahead and right-click and merge that down. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it one more time. That looks pretty good. Just one or two more things that we want to do. I'm going to add a little bit of light coming from the window. So I'm going to go to my layers palette, go down here to the bottom right, click new layer, and we're going to go ahead and grab our paintbrush. And there we go. There's our brush tool here. And I'm going to go ahead and just take this up using the bracket keys on my keyboard. And I'm on a new layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to make this quite large. And yeah, you can see what's happening is it's coming in hard. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Z that and go up here to the top left, and we're looking for the equivalent of a sort of soft, fluffy paintbrush that you would get in Photoshop. This one right here to the left should work fine. So if I again left click and then drag to here, yeah, you can kind of see, I think that will work just fine. Let's go ahead and take that brush up one more time. And I'm just left clicking and sort of dabbing on the window here. That's all. I'm going to go to the layers panel, change this to, let's try screen. And again, let's just drop that opacity. We want to give, like, it's just the impression of haze, if you will. Okay, I think that looks pretty nice. What we can also do is maybe tweak the color of that if we want just a little bit. We could make that a little bit more cream. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of paint over that just to give it effectively just a little bit more warmth. Yeah, I think that will work just fine. Okay, and then with that done, I'm going to go ahead and just adjust the opacity here a little bit. Right click and merge that one down. Okay, lovely stuff. I'm going to duplicate this one more time. And yeah, let me do that one more time. Just when in doubt, duplicate. And we're actually going to go up to image now. And we're going to go to adjustments. And we're going to go to shadows and highlights. Now, I do believe, unless I'm wrong, that Photoshop Camera Raw does this using a kind of basically like a curved slider. I'm not sure what the technical term for that is. We're just going to kind of do it here. So what I'm actually going to do is effectively darken and lighten certain areas. So the shadows is just that. If I take this to the left, you can see it's going to darken the areas that Photopea thinks are the shadows. And I can take the tone down as well and actually darken those areas quite a bit. I think that looks pretty nice. We can also do the same with the highlights, or the, we can go ahead and just crank this up. And you can see it's going to kind of brighten things a little bit. And if I take the tone to the right, it should you can kind of see the effect that it's actually having there. I'm going to leave the tone pretty low, about there. And I think that looks good. We also have options to adjust the overall color as well, which you can get some kind of pretty nice looking effects just kind of by tweaking this. If I go ahead, I'm going to crank it all the way to the opposite value. You can see how warm that image becomes, and I think it looks really, really nice. But we're going to take it the opposite way and actually strip out a little bit of the color. All right, I think that looks really lovely. Okay, let's go ahead and just click OK. Yeah, looks nice. I'm going to happily, let's just go ahead and merge all these guys down. By the way, we do have groups and stuff. You could totally do that. I'm just going to go ahead and just merge these layers. And again, if you take a look of where we're at from the original kind of lovely but meh to a slightly more interesting looking image, I think it works really well. I'm going to duplicate this one more time and we'll do our last few adjustments. All right, everybody, we're on the very end now, so let's go ahead and just see what else we can do. I'm going to go to filter, and the filter gallery, by the way, is not really, like, I haven't really found a use for any of these. One really cool thing, though, is that you can actually make normal maps out of this. There is a normal map filter, which I think is again, just really, really cool. 3D to normal map, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, slight segue. Let's go ahead and we're going to go blur. And I'm going to go ahead and do Gaussian blur. And this may take a second. There we go. 7.2. Yeah, let's leave that on for now. And I'm going to go ahead and add a mask and add a raster mask, which is down the bottom of our layers palette. And for those of you who've watched any of my videos before, this should be kind of, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and just put the brush back to about 60%. And I'm just going to left click in the center here. And I'm just, this may be slowing down just a little bit, but I'm just sort of painting in visibility and effectively painting it out. The last thing I really need is the whole image to be perfectly in focus. So let's just zoom in. You just want that a little bit around the edges where there's areas that are just kind of out of focus. And is it perfect? No, but will it get the job done? Yeah, especially if we drop that opacity just a little bit. I just want it to look like there's an area out of the camera. All right, right click, merge that down, and duplicate this one more time. Let's go up to filter, and we're going to go to other. And I love that Photopea has just this high pass, and we're going to go ahead and just click on this. And I'm going to go and put the radius down to 1.5, click enter, and click OK. And then we're going to change the blend mode here to overlay. And let's zoom in to see the effect that this has. And yeah, I think that looks pretty sweet. Let's look at this sort of wicker basket, and you can kind of see if we toggle this one on and off, you just get that extra fidelity, just that extra free sharpness that just comes in, which is absolutely wonderful. All right, right click, merge it down. We are going to go ahead and duplicate it one more time. And those of you who watched this video, again, on YouTube, the video pertaining to mirrors, thank you so much for watching that. One of the things I did mention in D5 when it comes to mirrors is be careful what's in the background. And I pointed out that you can see there's this weird flaw here. This was when I was building this model in SketchUp, and I sort of built all the walls and realized I had camera problems, pulled the walls back, but I left a weird transition. So let's see if we can't fix that in the next piece. All right, so what we're going to do is just bounce over to the left here. And what I'm going to look for is basically the equivalent of a clone stamp tool. You can see this little guy right here. Now, we also have the spot healing brush tool and the healing brush tool. These should be very familiar to anyone who's used Photoshop. Let's try the spot healing brush tool first just to see. And I'm just going to drag that over. Yeah. Not going to work in this situation. Let's try the healing brush tool. I'm going to Alt sample. And let's try actually Alt sampling from up here and just drag our brush down. And if I release, yeah, it's not too bad. Let's try the clone stamp tool instead. Now, again, I'm doing this like super rough. There's definitely way better ways to go about doing this. This is not the ideal way. You shouldn't have let it get this far. Like, you should fix any weird mistakes that you encounter in D5 before you kind of send out your render. But again, if we're just going super rough, can we fix it? Yeah, it's not perfect, but again, good enough is oftentimes good enough. All right, let's do the healing brush tool. We'll try this if we can just one more time. I'm just trying to clean this up ever so slightly. Yeah, getting a little bit too much blurring there. So I think you could go in and just like clean this up. I think that's good enough for me for now, just considering what we're doing. I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time on this. One last thing I do want to talk about though is, again, duplicate this one more time, is access to the blur and sharpen tools, but also the burn and dodge tool. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of dodging. And I'm going to do that over here on the pots. They've lost quite a lot of specularity, so I'm going to bring that back here. I'm going to go for, up here on the left, go to the highlights, exposure 50%, and I'm just going to left click and drag this out over the pots. Burn and dodge is like, you know, less is absolutely more on these. I'm going to go ahead and change my brush here to, again, a nice soft fluffy paintbrush, and I'm just going to, yeah, left click, there we go. And I'm bringing back effectively some of the highlights that were lost. We don't have to go crazy with it. You know, you don't have to go and do too much. Just a little bit of highlighting would go a long way here. Maybe try the same again over here and on the mirrors if we can. Yeah, you know, that's probably good. As you said, good enough is oftentimes good enough. Okay, with that being said, let's just do one quick comparison. I'm going to select all of the duplicate layers that we've done. I'm going to merge those layers, and let's see how this, you know, this image looks in comparison to our raw render just by going over here. And there we go. Yeah, I think it's got a lot more atmosphere. I think it's a lot more visually appealing. The look and feel is still there. You can tell what everything is, and you can tell sort of the mood that we're going for here. It's just a little bit more interesting. Now, that's it. That's the extent of it. There is a couple of other really cool things about Photopea 2 as well. We've got options over here for plugins. Now, I haven't used any of these. I'm not entirely sure how they work, but some of these look like absolutely so very cool. Like the Super Bloom over here, like the Starburst generator over here. It's definitely something that I am going to be messing around with and trying to see, you know, what else we can do. There's also templates, brushes, patterns. Like, there's a lot of really, really, really cool stuff here. And at the end of the day, you still get to basically go ahead and just do some really fantastic post-production without any massive overheads, without being tied to a Photoshop subscription model, you know, without being beholden to a sort of large corporate juggernaut. You have freedom here. Now, we should point out, you don't have access to a lot of the other things that come with Photoshop. The desktop edition, for example, you don't have access to Camera Raw. You don't have access to all the Photoshop bells and whistles. And there really is a lot to that when it comes to Photoshop. But, you know, push comes to shove, you can get a lot done in Photopea. I thoroughly, thoroughly recommend it. I thoroughly recommend that you guys go ahead and check it out. And if you've got the funds and you've got the cash and you want to support the developers, please go ahead and do that. $10 a month is really not crazy. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the videos, please go ahead and comment. And if you want, please go ahead and subscribe. Subscription numbers are really nice, and it's really nice to see comments from people who find the videos sort of useful. All right, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.